Hello and welcome to Central Georgia Focus, the Ask Mayor Miller edition. I'm Liz Fabian, your host from the Center for Collaborative Journalism. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for joining us again for this program where we ask the mayor your questions and he gives us the answers. It works very well. You know, last time we met, we had just had 2 overnight homicides that weekend before, and one of them was downtown and involved some changes in the law concerning alcohol sales and also temporary closing of 2 bars that have been allowed to reopen. So can you explain to us the changes that the county has put in place and why the rationale to reopen those bars now?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, I'd like to remind everyone that the sheriff is the one who decides ultimately about pulling an alcohol license. He can do that for up to 90 days, and at some point the commission has to review any evidence and make a decision on there. So he chose to do that on 2 downtown locations after a person lost their life while he did his investigation. We've been working on some ways to tighten up our policies, particularly about downtown, but all of Macon-Bibb County when it concerns bars and clubs and the issues that we've had. So we decided to be very consistent according to a nightlife study that we've been reviewed previously. You need to have one consistent closing time. And it's really confusing when the sheriff goes downtown and try to patrol to have multiple places closing at different times. You can't serve alcohol after 2 o'clock anyway, but businesses have been allowed to stay open until 3 o'clock. It just kind of kicks things a little bit later than we want to have, and most of the problems happen late at night. So we decided to do a consistently 2 o'clock closure for all bars, which will require them to have a little last call a little earlier in hopes of getting people home safe and at a reasonable hour.
And of course, you've also taken steps with food trucks downtown because people were just kind of setting up and providing an atmosphere where people were lingering downtown, right?
Right, and we all love a good food truck, and certainly we want to see them succeed, and we're pro-business, but we had a problem with some particular ones that were parking on the sidewalk, pouring grease down the drains, but more importantly, people would come outside the clubs and bars late at night after closure, and it would give them a reason to hang around and maybe drink out of the back of their cars, water on the sidewalks, get into fights, and ultimately resulted in the death of a few folks there. And a lot of common denominators we saw were these food trucks, legal food trucks pulling up and encouraging people to stay much later than they should. This particular incident happened about 3:45 in the morning. So it's really too late to be out there in my opinion, so we decided to do something about it. But at the same time, the sheriff's been asking us to review our policies and remove the barriers so he can do some enforcement. One of those things is they had a hard time determining which food trucks were legal, which one were not legal, what locations they were in, did they have permits. So basically when we set the 10 o'clock curfew on the food trucks, all he has to do is look at his watch and say they're legal or illegal. So I think it's going to help with enforcement, and we may go back and tweak it later on to make sure that we take care of the vendors that we have here or set up a zone that they can be at. But for temporarily right now, I think this is a good move.
And in some of the discussion with the county commission over this issue, there was a lot of talk about policing and having enough officers downtown. And you point out that the sheriff is a constitutional officer and you don't have any control over it except for setting a budget. But you can't tell him I need 5 officers down there like you could a police chief perhaps. So do you think the lack of an appointed police chief is a weakness of the consolidated government?
If I'm honest, I'd probably say yes. I'd love to have a police chief and a sheriff be able to work hand in hand and have a police chief that, worked under the mayor and commission, that you can have a little bit more authority to do certain things. It's hard to be held accountable by the people in Bibb County on certain safety issues you have absolutely zero control over there. And people say, well, you control the budget. Well, surely you don't want me to defund the sheriff's department, right? We funded the sheriff's department and other public safety more than any other administration has ever done. We're going to continue to be a good partner and work together, so I think that there's something to be said from that. We've been trying to help the sheriff relieve some of the duties that they have by code enforcement and others and through policy. Number one, we had the 11 o'clock closure for Vice Mart, and that frees up a lot of time and resources where the sheriff can focus their attention elsewhere, and we've done many technologies, including the cameras, shot spotter, and other things to kind of help the sheriff while they focused a little bit focused deterrence, but also why they suffered a little short on staffing issues.
Well, and speaking of staffing issues, I just spoke with a veteran law enforcement officer, and he's kind of afraid for the future, really, not seeing many. I mean, I know y'all have taken great steps to hire people, but do you still have staffing concerns?
It depends on who you talk to. I think at some point, half the community wants to have a sheriff deputy on every corner, the other half wants just reasonable safety precautions. I don't have any long-term concerns of having the appropriate staffing at the Sheriff's Department. You know, there's an election coming up next year. I'm sure we'll hear a lot about that between now and then with the Sheriff's Department. But bottom line is we've hired, 235, 240 deputies. We've had some attrition, but not as much as we used to have, so I'm excited about that. We had to think outside the box. You know, I saw the other day where Centerville was 7 short and they only have 20. That's a huge difference in patrolling there. So every place is having the same challenges we are. I do feel like we're in a good position with some out-of-the-box thinking that we've done. Having people go directly out into the workforce instead of going through the jail has been one of those things. Having some part-time employees to do that and relaxing some of the policies that the sheriff had before with tattoos and hair and all these other types of things. And we've given them plenty of funding as well. So I think all the things that we're doing are contributing to that. The technology is certainly making it better to work with less staff. But it's something I think every community is going to have to battle with in the future because it's not a profession that most people want to get into these days.
Right. And one of the ways to kind of reduce the load on the 911 center was to do online reporting. I tried to report something the other day though, and I've tried this another time. There's so many questions that are mandatory for you to fill in, like when did the incident start? When did it end? And this was an abandoned vehicle that I believe was stolen. So I couldn't fill in everything, so I had to actually call somebody. Do you think there's kind of a better way?
I think that we just have to have a better system in place and to learn to navigate the things going on. When we get any kind of new technology, you have to work out the bugs and the kinks in that. I think the future is going to happen like that, right? Like the same thing with automobile accidents. If there's not an injury, you're going to be self-reporting, and there's going to be forms online to do that. They do them all over the United States. Macon-Bibb County is not going to be any different. So those things also help with staffing issues. If there's a serious injury, of course, and the fire department or ambulance has to come, that's different. But I think those things are just something that have to be worked through with technology in the future.
And of course, with See-Click Fix, that's a way people report problems concerning more of the county kind of government. But a middle school parent tells me that the sidewalks are overgrown and there's even a tree growing through one of them. What are y'all doing with the rights of way?
Well, if we get notice of them, we take care of it. I mean, I think if the person lets us know that there's an issue there and it's our responsibility, we take care of it. Whether our solid waste does it or our public works do some of this. But we have to know about the problem first. That's always a challenge when you have trees and overgrown areas near sidewalks. Sidewalks are pretty old as well, so they have cracks in them and sometimes stuff grows up in between them. So I would say See-Click Fix and follow up on it if it's not done, talk to your commissioner. But anytime we get a call about this, we take care of it immediately.
Okay. Well, Octavia McElroy says in West Macon, the residents of Churchill and Gledhill Streets are having a recurring problem with illegal dumping. The county will come and clear it out, and then it's just back again. So any new ideas you have on that front?
Well, we just hope that grown folk behave, right? I mean, it's not the government throwing the trash out there and not creating these illegal dumps. The convenience center, we've opened up another one now in Ninedale over off Montpelier. The one on Fulton Mill Road does really well, and the one downtown on 11th Street does well. So just encourage people to do the right thing. Report it if you see that. We have been putting cameras out. There's a package out there going out there now to go through enforcement. So we're going to go through enforcement of that through the solicitor's office. So I expect that to happen and to continue. But as we educate people, we will clean it up. Unfortunately, we'll do that. But we're trying to get the convenience centers to try to help with that. And believe it or not, it's cut down on a lot of illegal dumping and Macon. We see a lot less than we used to. But we do have some problem areas that we have to continue to address.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, development is on the minds of a lot of you, so we'll talk about that when we return, so stay tuned. Welcome back to Central Georgia Focus, the Ask Mayor Miller edition. Now, Mr. Mayor, there's great interest already in a proposed new shopping center at Bass and New Forsyth Roads, including a proposed kind of discount warehouse, wholesale club kind of thing. Can you share anything more about that development?
Not really. I think it's on for some preliminary for planning and zoning. It's a normal process, normal steps is taken. It looks to be a sizable investment over the area. I know there's a lot of concerns about traffic already in that area, and it's like, you can't have it both ways. You can't say we want all these nice things in Macon and then think you can decide where they go to. It's like someone telling you, and I've heard it before, we got all these abandoned buildings, why don't they go there? Well, think about this. When you go to buy a house, are you going over to Bloomfield to that blighted house just because it's a blighted house? Or are you going to put your money where you want to put your money and live where you want to live at? with people that you want to be around. So it's kind of the same thing. Businesses come to our community. We can say no, and they can go to Warren Robins, they can go to Perry, they can go anywhere. Or we can say we have this particular land available, and this may be a good use for you. At the same time, we have moved things ahead of time in our schedule for that area, Zebulon Road. We've been constantly talking to GDOT about improvements. There's 2 or 3 designs already out there for roundabouts and ways to do traffic better. This particular development there, if it happens there, you have 2 ways to get in. It's not just a Bass Road. You have the new mall river crossing area there with the interstate there. There will be some sizable road improvements in that area there to make traffic flow a lot. So we'll see if it happens. I know people are also excited about it. Like I said, I can't say let's go to Presidential Parkway and make them go there. At the same time, we want them to come to Macon-Bibb County, whoever they may be, and it may be people moving within the community, you never know. But certainly there's a lot of excitement about it, and people get excited about traffic. And I go over there some days, it's a lot of traffic, right? But I pick some other times where there's not very much traffic. So I think you'll see that. Most of these places attract business on the weekends and at night, so I don't think you're going to have the traffic concerns with these stores over there.
Now, you've hit it a couple of times about Costco, but you can't say what's coming there or at this point.
Well, I don't know if I hinted anything about Costco. Certainly Macon-Bibb
You
County.
just made some announcements on not just like social media posts mentioning them.
Well, it'd be nice to have one in our community. Right now, there's no agreement signed with Costco to bring it here at this location, so I think we can set that aside. And certainly, companies want to do things on their own schedule. So whatever company may be coming to Macon-Bibb County, they want it to be on their own schedule. Sometimes people are our own worst enemy, so if you get out there and create too much excitement or wrong information, you may prevent that company from coming here. So I would ask people to proceed with caution.
Okay, and you kind of touched on it a little bit about the roads, but there's already kind of some talk about maybe stepping up the Bass Road widening because of this. Has there been any discussions with GDOT trying to put that more on their front burner?
Yes, a lot of that money is coming from other resources that we can't control with state and federal monies, and I let them know about the increased economic activity over there and the need to have that to keep Macon-Bibb County thriving. It's a hub over there, and I think that some people love it, some people don't love it, but it's going to continue to grow. These are growing pains, but I let them know it's a top priority for that area. You think about going back to the area over there on Forest Hill that Commissioner Jones always complains about. Well, they wanted to expand that road and widen that road because of the Macon Mall at the time, right? Once that kind of feathered out, they saw the need not to do that anymore and removed it from the shelf, and now we're getting more activity over there. So it's kind of an ebb and flow thing that happens, and I think that we're going to be in good shape. Never going to be as fast as I want or anybody in the community. Look at the I-16-75 interchange there. It doesn't happen overnight, but when it does finish up, it's a great process. So we're going to have some growing pains. We're going to continue to put the money that we need to there to make it happen, but also costs have increased dramatically. Sure. What we thought we were going to do last time to put our percentage up has increased twice the amount. And the same thing is true for the state and for the Fed. So pricing continues to increase, so it becomes a challenge. But like I said, we can't afford to let these businesses go elsewhere because of maybe some traffic calming stuff we could do.
Well, here's kind of a fun question from our civic journalism fellow, Laura Corley.
Oh, Lord.
If GDOT were a genie and you could have 5 wishes, what would you want GDOT to grant for you? Just off the top of your head. What are your 5 priority lists?
Well, I'd like them to grant me an airport that we're going to have a lot quicker than we're going to have it, so we could fly commercial planes in here all the times and people can go and people can visit our great community. Certainly, if Rickert was here, he would say that he wants to have that transit going, and certainly a train to Atlanta would be great, to Savannah would be awesome, but the truck lanes are going to be something that's going to happen coming up. But we really have a lot of challenges in our roads now, and I would like to see them put more money into the roads. A little concerned about the surplus money that we have and giving a discount for the gasoline. I don't know if it gets to where it's supposed to go, and I see some needs for other places. So, like I said, we have a great working relationship with GDOT. I don't want to mess anything up with them. But the airport, some better transit and roads, I think, are some of the top concerns I would have with GDOT.
And our CCJ director, Debbie Blankenship, says, are there incentives currently being offered to bring a grocery store downtown? Because, we've seen Ace Hardware's coming, and yet there's still pretty much a food desert. Is there any talks, like even trying to convince Aldi to open up another location or something like that?
Well, I can say there's been several talks, and there's some challenges to downtown as far as getting a store there. Number one, is it going to be centralized to everyone anyway? Is it going to be walkable? You're still going to have to drive. The other thing is they need a certain traffic count. We're not quite there yet. We're close. So we monitor the traffic counts, and certain stores have certain traffic counts they want coming into downtown. Quite honestly, the biggest traffic count right now is Riverside Drive. But if you put one on Riverside Drive there, you know, somewhere off of Spring Street exit, is that going to be a downtown grocery? Anybody going to walk there? Probably not, unless you have other things around that. So we're going to continue to work on that. We have spoken with several that may be interested, but they want to see some more lofts, which we have coming. We probably have another 700 in the next couple of years that will be on site, apartments and lofts, some affordable housing downtown. When you get foot traffic like that, you attract the attention of some grocery stores. I think we will get one, but it takes some time, and I think we're laying the foundation right now to make that happen.
And Darnell Neville says that research shows the correlation between crime and vacant buildings, and beyond the removal of blight that you've had success with well over 500 demolitions, what are you doing to combat business closures that leave these huge vacant buildings? And could there be discounted fair market sales or tax penalties for businesses that don't find suitable alternative uses for those buildings?
Well, that's a lot to unpack, but I will tell you that that Macon-Bibb County Industrial Authority already has a plan, and basically you can take advantage of those now to get some tax discounts to go in there to remodel some of these, refurbish. We certainly want to probably, like we're doing the mall, right? 75 acres would be a blighted property, but for our intervention in that. I'm not saying I want any more storage, you know, let that be clear. I don't want any more storage in Macon-Bibb County, and if I can help it, I don't see the great need to have them. We've got enough, in my opinion. I don't get to make all those decisions, so, you know, some of those things can be challenging, so I like for them to be repurposed and have uses on there. I can't prevent a bad business from going out of business, right? I mean, if you have a bad business model, you make good people, and sometimes they make bad decisions or the market changes. Look at Blockbuster Video, right? Everybody was loving Blockbuster. Look what happened with that.
Sure.
Not the best business model there. So I think we can continue to have some challenges, but like I said, the Industrial Authority already has some incentives to help some of those businesses from a tax perspective, and we're getting involved too with our Industrial Authority, our Urban Development Authority, and our small business are all working together to try to combat that.
Any idea why Target demolished their old building instead of selling it, or, you know?
It couldn't be sold. There were some foundational structural issues underneath there. It's been occurring for a while, and it's cost prohibitive to repair. So it's not all of a sudden that they just demolished. It's been a process that's been going on for a while. I got notice a couple months ago of the demolition of the property. It would cost millions to kind of save it, and you couldn't get that money for it. So if you're not going to reopen a Target there, and there's so many covenants to restrict other activities from happening at that site there, the best next thing is to have to cure all the problems underneath and have a clean lot that you can build upon. So the new owner's going to do some great things out there at the Presidential Parkway. I wouldn't be overly concerned. We are never going to get back to the retail we had once again. I keep telling people that. Don't keep talking about the 1970s and 80s because we're not there, right? Amazon wasn't there.
Right.
Click and ship was not there, and people changed their mode of purchasing items. So we can reinvent that area in multiple ways, and I wouldn't be so concerned about the Target going down.
Okay. Well, also this year, P&Z's already permitted about 1,000 new apartments. So we're going to be talking about affordable housing when we come back. Thank you for staying with us for the Central Georgia Focus Ask Mayor Miller. Mr. Mayor, can you tell us, Deborah Harris wonders about the lack of affordable homes for the middle income levels. She says there are affordable housing developments, but she doesn't qualify. And then she can't afford the rental market right now, which she says is too steep for single seniors. So what's on the horizon for housing here in Macon?
Well, that's a good question. I think affordable housing is one of those things where you can ask 10 different people what affordable housing is, and you would get a different response from each one of those. Most people immediately go to Section 8, and it scares them to death. These apartments we have coming online are not Section 8 apartments specifically. Our need is probably a couple thousand, and we only have 1,000. We built probably 800 houses in the last year, which is almost a record, I think, in Bibb County for housing development. But today's market's a little different. A lot of people have transient workforce. They don't want a yard. They don't want a two-car garage. They don't want 3,000 or 4,000 square feet. They want something smaller. A lot of this is workforce housing. You know, you can't ask Amazons and your Irvings and all these places to come to our community. I mean, we're the top place to do business in the United States, the top state, almost 10 years running, if it's not 10 years, and all these new folks coming to Georgia for these jobs, but they gotta have a place to stay. Like it or not, some of those people are choosing to stay in apartments. Doesn't mean they're bad people, doesn't mean it's gonna make your property values go down. They pay taxes like everyone else there. but unfortunately it's a necessary evil, and it's a way to get a high density in a smaller area. So I think it's a necessary evil in some places. Sometimes we overdo it. Affordable housing, $175 a square foot is about as cheap as you're going to get to build a house. Most people can only build a 1,000 square foot house for that, right? It's about 200 grand with the land costs. Our Macon-Bibb County Affordable Housing Plan is going to be something that's going to help a lot of people. It's going to encourage people to take the blight we have, turn it into a home, so we have more homeowners. We'll provide some gap financing, some home ownership opportunities, some down payment assistance, and some low interest revolving loan that was intended to do for. We're well on the way. We've done our rubric. We've had our consultant come in. We'll start loaning money pretty soon on that. It's going to be a game changer, I think, for Macon-Bibb County.
And GPB's Grant Blankenship had a concern that maybe the downtown rents are pushing up rents all across the community. So do you think that those blighted homes and what you're doing will be able to create that access to affordable housing?
The downtown rents have nothing to do with the prices of tea in China, right? It's basically, it's the market. The more we can get to the market, the less expensive it's going to be, right? Affordable loss downtown could be $1,500, right? But that may not be affordable to everyone. At the same time, that is the market rate, and that's what you'll have to pay for most nice places that you have in downtown Macon. But the, we can, if we get more supply out there, we get a lot more homes built that we're trying to do now. You'll flood the market with some houses and prices go down. But you're also looking at a situation where materials are too high, labor is scarce, there's not enough people doing the job, and interest rates are 7 to 8%. That's not the perfect environment to build homes. So you have to look for cheap money, and that's what we're trying to do with this revolving loan fund that we can probably lend out at 3 or 4%, which will encourage developers to get involved.
And Mike Loke says he's wondering about a gateway to Macon from Riverside. I've noticed the new Macon sign that's on Gray Highway near Wood Valley, but Mike wants to know, he recalls a design rendering but doesn't know the status. But so are there plans for another gateway like at Riverside and maybe 247?
Gateway, you're talking about signage, or you're talking about?
Signage, I think.
Not aware of any signage other than what Visit Macon is doing there. We're waiting on all that construction on Riverside Drive and that before we can do too much. Improving our gateways as far as beautification, we've certainly got designs for that. And some signage that goes along with that, but we can't complete that until the interstate project is mainly complete in those areas. So we want to improve our gateways, be happy to listen to any concerns or take any, if they've got some areas they think we could be a gateway, we certainly would take that to Visit Macon. They're the ones responsible for the signage.
Well, we've got less than a minute, but what are your plans for a county waste transfer station? I understand there's a moratorium now as y'all study that, but James Lanier says there's a plan over by the old landfill, and y'all have an RFP out there.
We have an RFP that we'll announce very soon on who the winner of the RFP is. We've been looking at the potential of putting a transfer station right there where we tore down the old animal station there next to our convenience center, currently down on 11th Street. So it looks like a great possibility. You don't really have any neighborhoods over there. You don't have too much interference there as far as residential, for parks. You've got Carolyn Creighton Park somewhere close by, but kind of out of the area. So a lot more concerns you have in other places.
All right.
Built next to me.
We're going to have to leave it there, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for joining us. Remember, send your questions to mercerccj@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us today.